Shalom, everybody. Welcome to this week's journey through Torah. We're in the book of Devarim, in the book of Deuteronomy, also called Words. It starts off, these are the words of Moses, and he's preparing this generation to go into the land of promise, things they've heard about their whole life. Now they're getting ready to walk into it. But before they do, there's some important instructions that is needed before they actually go into the land. It's much like, you know, when you've gone through school and you're getting ready to graduate, they always have someone giving a commencement speech. Well, this isn't to recap like every single little detail of your education, but it's saying, okay, guys, look, these are the things that you've learned. Now, before you get off into what you're doing for the rest of your life, you need to learn to apply these things into real world scenarios. And this is what's happening with Moses. He has told the people, this is what you've known your whole life, but you're about to go into the land and you're about to possess things that and live ways that you're not familiar with. So when you go into the land, these are things for you to follow in what lies ahead, so that it is a blessing for you, so that Yahweh will continue to bless you and you will continue to walk in his ways in this new venture in life to come. So he is not just doing a recap of everything that they've learned. He is trying to tell them, don't forget these very important things when you go into the promise. And that's good things for us to learn as well. It's not just to say, you know, the sum of all of our knowledge of Yahweh in the scripture is this. No, it's just that as we learn through things in life, let's not forget there are some really important things. See, we tend to focus on the minuscule things, you know, well, let's face it, we all kind of zero in and focus on different areas, right? So if we all just laser focus on our little pet points, it's not going to do much good to the community as a whole. So Moses is telling the people, when you go into the land, these are the things that are important. These are the things that you need to follow. These are the things that you need to keep with you wherever you go. Okay, and so we're going to follow that through from Deuteronomy, through the prophets and into the Brit Hadashah with Yeshua. And we're going to go through a few things in here today. Okay, well, first off, the name of this parsha is Ekev. Ekev is because, and it's kind of a weird translation for it. The idea is it's a result of something. It's because of this happens. All right, that's the same word that's used for heal. Now, why would the word because be related to the word heel, like on the heel of your foot, your heel? Because the heel, as you're walking, is the very last thing behind you. It's that which follows after everything else, okay? So this is a result of your actions. So what we're going to talk about today, it's not just about the word of Yahweh, but it's what you do with it. It's the result of your actions. We can handle the things of Yahweh properly and receive blessings, or we can mishandle the things of Yahweh, profane his name, and cause ourselves to be walking in cursings. It's up to us what we do with what we've been given. You know, much like life, we can't control some of the things that happened outside of us, externally, and other people, but we can control how we respond to things in our life, and we can control what we do because of these things. So again, we do have a responsibility to walk righteously as a people of Yahweh, to show himself, to show his character to the world around us. A lot to get into today, right? Well, let's start off with this. Deuteronomy 7:12. It says, because you listen to these rules and keep and do them, Yahweh your God will keep with you the covenant and the steadfast love that he swore to your fathers. Again, he says, because you listen to me, this extension of covenant that I have given to Abraham, Yitzhak, and Yaakov, your fathers, will continue with you. Now, they'd already entered into this covenant with Yahweh, so it's not a matter of really withholding covenant from them. He's saying that the blessings that were provided within this covenant will be extended to you because you are listening to my voice, because you are doing the things that I've asked you to do. It's kind of like a result of an action. You know, if you do this, you get that, right? Like it says in the Pentateuch, It says it is a result which is not striven for, but comes automatically by itself. That's why it's called Ekev, literally hill. It is what follows obedience, not with what went before. So it's the result of an action, right? Because you do this, this is what you get, right? So there are things that happens in life, in nature, just the way things work, that Yahweh knows and understands. He created the world. He created the earth. He created everything in it. And so he knows what makes it work. He knows what makes it function. And so I believe he's in a good place to tell us, if you do this, this is the results you're going to have. When you go into the land, and example, the Shemitah years, you go into the land in the 6th year, you are to prepare yourself. You are to let the land rest, because the 7th year is when it's going to happen, right? 6th year, you don't plant because the 7th year is resting. He knows this is what the land needs. This is what the land is to be given to. And so if they don't do it, they were going to be exiled. What happened? They didn't do it. They were exiled, right? So this is just one little way this kind of functions, all right? Now, the idea is when he says to keep these commands that I give you. Now, this is kind of a tough thing with us, because when people hear the word command, it generally causes an extreme reaction, causes an extreme either one way or the other. Okay, either an extreme on one side of command, we don't like that. Something within us rises up, and it's like, we don't want to be commanded to do anything, right? But on the other side of it, we understand that everything that Yahweh told us is a command. Nothing he told us is a suggestion. He instructs us. So again, it's how we approach this can really have an effect on us, okay? And so to do all these things that I command you, now again, we can kind of internalize this, take this on, and cause it to be a crushing weight upon us. How many of you have thought or may have heard, I can't do all these things? Or, well, I can't come to God because I've got to get all these things in my life fixed. Then I can come to him. Well, we're never going to have all these things fixed. We're never going to do all these things perfectly and right so that we can come to him. Matter of fact, we were never instructed to do that. We were told to come to him, and then these are his ways. This is his heart being expressed and given to us. Learn to walk in them. So we think, okay, great. I've got to learn all these things, the entirety of Scripture, and be thoroughly well versed in it, and do everything perfectly so that Yahweh can receive me? No, that's not it at all. So how are we to do this? And I'm going to oversimplify this, but it is the way the Scripture tells us to. How do we do it? One at a time. That's it. We do them one at a time. And we can't do all of them all the time, because they're for different scenarios in life, different groupings of people, different types of things going on, right? But we can do as it is presented to us, as we are given opportunity, as we have things right in front of us. These things we can do, right? Let's take a look at it. Again, in the Pentateuch by Hirsch, it reads, we are not to weigh the separate mitzvahs in our minds to consider which mitzvah probably expect larger reward, so that we pay particular attention to that one. The paths of the Torah form an ever-widening circle in which they overlap each other and lose themselves one in the other. We cannot foresee the result of fulfilling any mitzvah. They interlock one to another. And far-reaching results arise from what is apparently the smallest, it seems to us, the least important mitzvah. That is why all mitzvahs, without distinction, should be performed with equal conscious faithfulness, all part of equal importance to us, all only to be done in the feeling of being duty, without giving a thought to what we might consider deserving of a greater or lesser reward. The idea is, we're not to weigh out what God said to see which one can better benefit us. We're to just do what he said. And then the benefit will not just be for us, but will be for those around us and the community as a whole, right? The community at large. So when he says, keep all the mitzvot I am giving you today, well, look at this in Deuteronomy 11:8. It says, you shall therefore keep the whole commandment that I command you to this day. Guys, again, if we say this, it would be crushing for us, right? Because there's a lot that we don't know. And so how are we to do this day by day by day if we don't fully know them all yet? Well, again, it literally is putting it in the context of one at a time. Okay, because it reads in the Hebrew, it's ushmartim, that's and you shall guard or to keep, et kol ha-mitzvah. It's mitzvah is singular, the command. So et kol ha-mitzvah, it's you are to keep each command. One at a time is how we approach it, step by step. All right. So again, this is the idea of Yahweh's grace towards us. He wants us to learn his ways. He wants us to walk according to his heart that he expressed to us. But we're doing that step by step as we're learning to walk with him. Where do we start? Again, step by step, learn to walk in his ways. Consider what was said in Acts 15, 19 to 21. James put it this way, my judgment regarding the Gentiles who were turning to God. So we should write to them to abstain from things polluted by idols, from sexual immorality, from what has been strangled, and from blood. And then look at this next thing. For from ancient generations, Moses has had in every city those who proclaim him, for he is read every Sabbath in the synagogues. The idea here is, okay, he gives them just 4 things to basically start with. Again, these are Gentiles, people of the nations who want to serve Yahweh, but they have no idea how to do it. They don't know what his instructions are. They have not spent their life learning what the Torah says. So James says, let's just give them these couple things. Then, guys, they're going to go to the synagogue on Shabbat to hear the Torah taught. They're going to go to the synagogue on Shabbat to hear the expression of the heart of Yahweh. And again, that's learning step by step to walk in his ways. It's not a matter of, well, which is the most important and which is the least important? Because I don't want to do the least important. I want to do the most important. No, then we're missing an aspect of the character of Yahweh that he wants to impart to us. We need to learn to walk in his ways wherever we are and take it and as it has given us opportunity. Learn to do that. Even this question was even posed to Yeshua. Look, Matthew 22:35. So one of them, a lawyer, asked a question to him, Teacher, which is the great commandment in the law? Isn't this what we're talking about? Isn't that what Deuteronomy addressed? Verse 37. And he said to him, You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and all your mind. This is the great and first commandment. And the second is like it. You shall love your neighbor as yourself. On these 2 commandments depend all the Torah and the prophets, depend all the law and the prophets. So he didn't say these 2 things replace the law and the prophets. He did not say these 2 things replace the Torah. He said on these 2 things depend or hang all of the Torah and the prophets. In other words, if you're doing these 2 things, this is the summation, the entirety of what is written in the Torah and the prophets. This is the heart of the Father expressed in these 2 things. And then in the Torah of the prophets, you find the how-to. Okay. You find the daily part of it, the nitty gritty of it, right? So this is an expression of how we're supposed to do this. Yeshua did not say, do these 2 things and forget the law and the prophets. Okay. He said, do these 2 things and you will be fulfilling what is in the law and the prophets. Okay. Again, it's a foundational element of the faith. The spirit of the Torah is explained in these 2 things. We find this in Isaiah 8, 16 and 20, where it says, bind up the testimony, seal the law, seal the Torah among my disciples. And then to the law and the testimony, if they speak not according to this, it's because there is no light in them. So this is what he's saying, that we will have the word of the living God written on our hearts. And we're learning to walk in his ways. And we got to extend some grace to one another in the midst of the learning process. And again, the idea here is, okay, if someone doesn't know what they're doing and they're learning how to do it, are you going to yell at them for doing it wrong? Or are you going to try to help them out when they're making mistakes? Now, I know there's a lot of gray area in that, but the point of it being, are we willing to help each other out in the midst of it? In the midst of our learning, are we willing to help one another? Okay. Look, let's continue. Matthew 23:23, where he says, the first things first in this, right? He says, woe to you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites, because you pay tithe of mint and anise and cumin. So the question here is, was Yeshua upset that they paid the tithe, even on the minute, even on the little things? No, not really. He wasn't upset that they were doing that, but keep reading. So you have omitted. So the issue is not what they were trying to let me start over. The issue was not that they were trying to be obedient, even in the little things. The problem is they left out the bigger things. Okay. They were doing the little things, but they weren't catching the why. And it's important to know the why. All right. Let's keep going. The weightier matters: law, judgment, mercy, and faith. These ought you have done, and not to leave the other undone. See, so he's not saying you shouldn't do these things. He's saying you're doing these things, but you're forsaking the heart behind these things. Get the heart right so you can do these things the right way. Right? Matthew 23:24. Blind guides, you strain at a gnat, swallow a camel. Woe to you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites, for you make clean the outside of the cup of the platter, but within they're full of extortion and excess. So, blind Pharisee, cleanse first that which is within the cup and the platter, that the outside of them may be clean also. He told them the weightier matters of the Torah is what they should be focusing on. So the first thing is noting this. The weightier matters of the Torah is a matter of Torah. Does that make sense? What we're told is that the weightier matters of the law is what we should focus on, not the law. It doesn't make sense, because the weightier matters is still part of the Torah. It's just that it's a part that we neglect. So we have to go back and focus on the parts that we have not really looked at. All right. What are the weightier matters of the law? Judgment, mercy, and faith. Again, we're told these kind of outrank the Torah? No, because Yeshua says these you ought to have done and not leave the others undone. Yeshua was not saying ignore the Torah because I'm going to give you something better. What he was saying is I'm going to redirect your heart here, because you're doing these things, but your heart needs to be right. That's the most important thing. Okay, you've missed the point is what we're getting at. So Matthew 5, let's go to Matthew 5, verse 14 and 19. It says, you are the light of the world. A city that's set on a hill cannot be hid. Neither do men light a candle and put it under a bushel, but on a candlestick, and it gives light to all that are in the house. Let your light so shine before men that they may see your good works and glorify your Father which is in heaven. Think not that I am come to destroy the law or the prophets. I have not come to destroy, but to fulfill. Okay, well, before we continue, let's take a look at something. He's talking to them about letting their light shine. Well, how do they let their light shine? He goes right on to say, don't think I've come to do away with the Torah or the prophets. How do you let your light shine? By walking in his ways. That's his light shining through you, right? So he says, don't think I've come to do away with these things. I'm not come to destroy them, but to fulfill them. So the question is, what does fulfill mean? That's a fair question, right? Does fulfill mean to do away with something? Does fulfill mean, okay, we've fulfilled our obligations and now it's irrelevant? Once you fulfill something, it disappears? Or does it mean now there's an understanding to it? Now you understand the things that is there. It's kind of like a prerequisite, right? Before you can go further, you have to know this. Before you can go to a next stage, you have to understand the first stage, right? Good example, the military. You got to go to boot camp before you go on into your career. You have to learn how to do things before you can apply the learning. So he says when he's come to fulfill, it doesn't mean he's come to do away with it. It literally means he's come to reinforce it. He's come to provide it to coming all together, to allow it to be acceptable and for it to be honorable. He's come to make it stand firm and properly in our midst. Romans 8:3-5 says, so what the Torah could not do by itself because it lacked the power to make the old nature cooperate. Look at that. It says the Torah couldn't do it because it lacked the power to make the old nature cooperate. It didn't say that the Torah was bad. It didn't say that the Torah was wrong. What it said was that humans had a role to play in their obedience to it. The Torah does not say, here I am, I'm Torah, you have to do what I say, and I'm going to make you do it. I'm going to literally take your hand, and I'm going to see, it doesn't work that way, does it? Yahweh will give us his instructions, but it's up to us to walk in those instructions. All right, so let's keep reading. So what the Torah could not do by itself because it lacked the power to make the old nature cooperate, God did by sending his own son as a human being with a nature like our own, sinful one, but without sin. God did this in order to deal with what? Torah? No, deal with sin. And in so doing, he executed the punishment against sin in human nature. Look at verse 4, so that the just requirement of the Torah might be fulfilled in us, who do not run our lives according to what our old nature wants, but according to what the Spirit wants. For those who identify with their old nature set their minds on things of the old nature. But those who identify with the Spirit set their minds on the things of the Spirit. So does this contradict walking in Torah? No, absolutely not. Because he says that we are learning to walk in the Spirit when we're learning to walk according to his Torah. Matter of fact, Yeshua came so that the righteous requirements that are in the Torah could be fulfilled in us, so that we could learn to walk righteously. Okay, this is what he's doing. He's equipping us to learn to walk in his ways. Romans 8:6 says, "For to be carnally minded is death, but to be spiritually minded is life and peace." Because, does it say the Torah is enmity against God? No. It says the carnal mind is enmity against God. Why is the carnal mind enmity against God? Because it is not subject to the law of God, neither indeed can be. So what is not subject to the Torah? One who is carnally minded. So then they that are in the flesh cannot please God. That's what we're talking about. So then they that are in the flesh cannot please God because they're not walking according to his heart, his ways. All right? Back to Matthew 5, verse 18. "Verily I say to you, till heaven and earth pass, not one jot or tittle shall in no wise pass from the law till all be fulfilled. Whosoever therefore shall break one of the least commandments and shall teach men so, he shall be called the least in the kingdom of heaven. But whosoever shall do and teach them, the same shall be called great in the kingdom of heaven." So again, if the Torah was irrelevant, why would Yeshua say that the one who doesn't keep Torah and teaches others not to keep Torah will be called least in the kingdom? But the one who teaches and causes others to teach, to do, to walk in it, will be called great in the kingdom. See that? If it's irrelevant, why would he say that? It would have no bearing, no difference on it. See, so it's not that he came to do away with that. It's he came to change the delivery of that. See, it's not just words on a page. It's not just words inscribed in stone. It's words in your heart. It's now alive. It's now living in you. And because of that, it's to grow in you and it's to cause fruit in you. And what's the fruit? You know, we can go to Galatians 5, but that's not what we're talking about, the fruit of the Spirit here, right? But what is the fruit that's going on here? Learning of the weightier matters. Look, what are they? Judgment, mercy, and faith. These are the things that we're talking about. Judgment, mercy, and faith. So judgment is a weightier matter. I mean, should we go around being judges of one another? Well, that's not exactly what we're talking about here, okay? And the word judgment here means justice. So we are to live justly. We are to act and function and behave justly towards one another. Look, Deuteronomy 6:24-25 says this, "Yahweh commanded us to do all these statutes, to fear Yahweh our God for our good always, that he might preserve us alive as it is this day. And it shall be our righteousness if we observe to do all these commandments before Yahweh our God that he has commanded us." See that? It will be our righteousness if we do what he says. That's not our own righteousness. That's walking in his righteousness. Okay, so if we're walking in justice, justice and righteous in the Hebrew can be the same word. Okay, so these are things that we should keep in mind. So when it says judgment, justice, righteousness, these are things we need to learn to walk in. Okay, Leviticus 19:15. "You shall do no unrighteousness in judgment. You shall not respect the person of the poor, nor honor the person of the mighty. But in righteousness you shall judge your neighbor. You shall not go up and down as a talebearer among your people, neither shall you stand against the blood of your neighbor. I am Yahweh. You shall not hate your brother in your heart. You shall in any wise rebuke your neighbor and not suffer sin upon him. You shall not avenge nor bear any grudge against the children of your people, but you shall love your neighbor as yourself. I am Yahweh. Again, what does it mean to walk in judgment and justice and righteousness? Respect one another. Give honor to one another. Don't seek after one another in malicious ways. Pursue the heart of Yahweh. Pursue his heart towards one another. Let's keep going. Deuteronomy 1:15. So I took the chief of your tribes, wise men and known, and made them heads over you, captains over thousands, captains over hundreds, captains over 50s, captains over 10s, and officers among your tribes. And I charged your judges at that time, saying, hear the causes between your brethren, and judge righteously between every man and his brother and the stranger that is with them. You shall not respect persons in judgment, but you shall hear the small as well as the great, and you shall not be afraid of the face of man, for the judgment is God's, and the cause that is too hard for you bring to me, and I will hear it. Again, we were to have people in our midst that were to help us when we don't get along, that happens, doesn't it? Right? That's when they came out of Egypt and they're sitting there. And Moses is sitting there listening to people complain about one another all day, and he's trying to tell them how to get along and resolve issues. We need a third party sometimes to come in and tell us where we can learn to make changes to benefit one another. All right. And again, this is what I was talking about in Deuteronomy 16, verses 18 to 20. Okay. He says, judges and officers you shall make in all your gates that Yahweh your God gives you throughout your tribes. You shall judge the people with just judgment. You shall not wrest judgment. You shall not respect persons, neither take a gift, for a gift blinds the eyes of the wise, pervert the words of the righteous. That which is altogether just, look at this part right here, that which is altogether just, you shall follow. So that wherever you live, and inherit the land which Yahweh your God gives you. So where it says that which is altogether just, you will follow, it's zedek, tirdof. The word zedek is here twice. It's righteousness, or justice. Let me put it this way. Pursue righteousness righteously. See, that makes sense, doesn't it? Do the right thing the right way. It's not just a matter of to do the right thing, but do the right thing the right way. That's something that we should continue to keep in the heart of the Father. So what's the next? Mercy. Again, there's many things that are found here for mercy, but there's a related word I'm looking at specifically is chen. Chesed is there as well. That chen is the word for mercy, also used sometimes for grace, right? Like, and Noach found grace in the eyes of the Lord, but Noach, hen, the word is chen, and it found grace or mercy in the eyes of Yahweh. And this is always something that's been there, right? It's just we don't really pay attention to it when we're reading through the Torah, all right? Exodus 33:15. It says, if your presence go not with me, carry us not from here. For wherein shall it be known here that I and your people have found grace in your sight? See that? Is it not in that you go with us? So shall we be separated, and I, your people, and from all the people that are upon the face of the earth. And Yahweh says to Moses, I will do this thing also that you have spoken, for you have found grace in my sight, and I know you by name. See that? So we need the grace of Yahweh. We need his grace. We need his mercy. We need to walk in his justice. We need to walk in his righteousness. All of these things are things that we should keep before us, keep in front of us. All right. Exodus 15:13. In your mercy, you have led forth the people which you have redeemed, and you have guided them in your strength to your holy habitation. Deuteronomy 5:10. You show mercy to thousands of them that love me and keep my commandments. Exodus 34:6. Yahweh passed by before him, and he proclaimed, Yahweh, God, merciful and gracious, long-suffering and abundant in goodness and truth. What about Abraham? Genesis 15:6. He believed in Yahweh, and he counted it to him as righteousness. Genesis 18:18. Seeing Abraham surely shall become a great and mighty nation, and all the nations of the earth shall be blessed in him. For I know him that he will command his children and his household after him, that they shall keep the way of the Lord to do justice and judgment, that Yahweh may bring upon Abraham that which he has spoken of him. See that? To do justice and judgment, just for him and his children after him to be taught, right? Not just him doing it, but teaching his household to do the same. Psalm 40, verse 8, I delight to do your will, O my God. Your law is within my heart. Psalm 19:14 says, let the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart be acceptable in your sight, O Yahweh, my strength and my redeemer. And Deuteronomy 33:16 says, for the precious things of the earth and the fullness thereof, and for the good will of him that dwelt in the bush, let the blessing come upon the head of Yosef and upon the top of the head of him that was separated from his brethren. Again, we're looking at mercy and grace and justice and judgment, all this coming in together. Okay, so we have the justice, we have mercy, and then faith. Faith in the Hebrew is emunah. Emunah is where we get the word amen, right? Emunah means faith or faithful, emun, right? So we're looking at this. Genesis 15:16, where it says, he believed Yahweh, it was counted to him as righteousness. Well, also in Numbers 12:6-8, right? So we go back and where he says this, well, because of what? And he said, hear my words. If there be a prophet among you, I, Yahweh, will make myself known in a vision. I will make myself speak to him in a dream. My servant Moses is not so, who is faithful in all my house. With him will I speak mouth to mouth, even apparently, not in dark speeches. In the similitude of Yahweh shall he behold. Wherefore then were you not afraid to speak against my servant Moses? Again, speaking of Abraham, he believed in him and it was counted to righteousness. The word believe is the word for faith, and it means an action. He believed what Yahweh said, so he acted on it and got up and left, right? Same thing with Moshe. He believed Yahweh, so he acts on him. He is faithful in all of his house, okay? Exodus 19:8. So all the people answered together and said, all that Yahweh has spoken, we will do. And Moses returned the words of the people unto Yahweh. And Yahweh said to Moses, lo, I come to you in a thick cloud, and the people may hear when I speak with you, and believe you forever. And Moses told the words of the people unto Yahweh. So again, to believe in him is to act according to his words. See that? Believe is not just something that we can say, oh, I believe that, like it's true or not. No, that's not the issue. See, to believe, biblically speaking, means you act on it, right? Let's look at this as a side note. John 5:46. It says, for had you believed Moses, you would have believed me, for he wrote of me. But if you believe not his writings, how shall you believe my words? Yeshua is saying, if we believe what Moses wrote, then we'll believe what Yeshua says. But if we do not believe what Moses wrote, we can't believe what Yeshua says. How can we say that we're following Yeshua if we don't believe what Yeshua is telling us to believe? Do I need to say that slower, or did you get it? How can we say that we are following Yeshua if we are not listening to what he is telling us is important? He says, if you believe Moses, you would believe me. Which means we need to look back to what Moses said to see how he testified of Yeshua and Yahweh and the goodness that follows through that. And because we believe, obedience follows that. Look, lack of faith produces a lack of obedience. A demonstration of faith equals obedience. Deuteronomy 28:58 says, if you will not observe to do all the words of this law that are written in this book, that you may fear this glorious and fearful name of the Lord your God. What is he talking about? If you do not observe to do, you don't believe it, you're not going to do it. You're not going to walk in it. But if you believe it, you're going to do it. Same thing with Deuteronomy 28:66. And it says, your life shall hang in doubt before you. You shall fear day and night. You shall have no assurance. That's the word to emun. It's the word we're talking about. Emunah is the same word. You shall have no assurance or faith of your life. So again, if we do not have obedience, then we won't have the assurance of the faith in that. Look, but on the other side, a demonstration of faith equals obedience. James 2:17, even so faith if it has not works is dead, being alone. A man saying, you have faith, I have works. Show me your faith without your works, and I will show you my faith by my works. You believe that there is one God? You do well. The devils also believe and tremble. But will you know, vain man, that faith without works is dead? What does Peter tell us regarding this? 1 Peter 2:6 says, wherefore also it is contained in the scripture, behold, I lay in Zion a chief cornerstone, elect precious, that he believes on him shall not be confounded. Unto you therefore which believe, he is precious. But to them which are disobedient, you see that. That's what he's doing. He's comparing belief with obedience, because he's saying to you who believe he is precious, but to those who are disobedient, well, these are two different things, aren't they? No, not really. Because he's saying if you believe, you will be obedient. If you do not believe, then you're going to be disobedient. It's not going to matter to you. All right. So again, verse 9, 1 Peter 2:9. But you are a chosen generation, a royal priesthood, a holy nation, a peculiar people, that you should show forth the praises of him who has called you out of darkness into his marvelous light. Okay, what's this marvelous light, right? Remember back when we just read a little bit ago where Yeshua says, let your light shine? So what is this light? John chapter 1, again, we see things in here, but John chapter 1, in the beginning was the Word was with God, the Word was God. In him was life, and the life was the light of men. And the light shines in the darkness, and the darkness comprehended it not. See that? The light that was in the beginning is Yeshua. It's the Word. And the Word was with God. The Word was God. The Word became flesh and dwelt among us. That is the light that is life, right? Yeshua's saying, let your light shine. He's saying, let me shine in you. Let the Word of Yah shine and live in you, right? So go a little further down, John 8:12. Yeshua spoke again, saying, I am the light of the world. He that follows me shall not walk in darkness, but shall have the light of life. By the way, this was after Yeshua upheld the Torah principle of any accusation brought forth needs to be accompanied by 2 or more credible witnesses with the woman caught in adultery. That was the issue he was really pointing out there with the woman caught in adultery that was brought, because it was about credible witnesses, and that was according to Torah. That was according to what was given. He used the Torah to set this woman free, because he said, if you don't have any sin, pick up the first stone, right? Go ahead and cast it. And he started writing the names in the sand. That's what I believe anyway. He started inscribing in the sand, writing in the sand. And there is a scripture in the prophets that talk about, may those who turn their back on you, may their names be written in the dust. So here he says, he starts writing names in the sand, basically saying who's guilty, who's not guilty. If none of you are guilty, go ahead, right? So they leave. Then Yeshua asked the woman, where are your accusers? He didn't say, are you guilty or not? He said, where are your accusers? And she said, there aren't any. Well, if there are no credible witnesses, on a capital offense, there had to be 2 or 3 witnesses, 2 or more witnesses. There aren't any willing to testify. Therefore, she cannot be charged with the crime. See that? He used the Torah to set her free. Now let's go back to Matthew 5. In John 8:12, he said, I am the light of the world. In Matthew 5, he says, you are the light of the world. Then he says, the city set on a hill cannot be hid, right? And then he goes on down to say, let your light shine. How do you let your light shine? Now that's when he comes in, he says, don't think I've come to destroy the Torah of the prophets. I've come to destroy them, but to fulfill them. Look, again, Matthew 23:23. Woe unto you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites, for you pay the tithe of the mint and anise and cumin. We've read this, right? You have omitted the weightier matters of the law, judgment, mercy, and faith. These ought you have done, and not to leave the other undone. Blind guides, strain at a gnat, swallow a camel. Woe to you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites, for you make clean the outside of the cup and on the platter, but within they are full of extortion and excess. Blind Pharisee, cleanse that which is within the cup, the platter, then outside them may be clean also. Let's keep going. Matthew 23:28. Even so, you also outwardly appear righteous unto men, but within you are full of hypocrisy and iniquity. Look at that. They outwardly appear righteous. Yeshua told these men that the things that others can see, they were doing good. From what others could see, they were doing the right things. Stop and think about that for a second. Where he's saying all these things that they were doing look right. But that's not the problem. The problem is not on the outward appearing of the doing. The problem is the heart behind the doing. Are you doing to try to earn favor from God? Are you doing to try to earn or make your way into something? Or are you doing because that's what the heart of Yahweh says? Are you doing because That's what he gave to us. That's what he desires for us, to walk in his ways, to provide a life of blessing for us and others, right? So again, the issue is not so much what you do, but why. 1 Chronicles 29:18, he says, O Lord God of Abraham, Isaac, and Israel, our fathers, keep this forever in the imagination of the thoughts of the heart of your people, and prepare their heart to you, and give unto Solomon my son a perfect heart, to keep your commandments, your testimonies, and your statutes, and to do all these things, and to build the palace which I have made the provision. David is saying, let my son Solomon be perfect before you. Let him have a perfect heart. What did David classify that as? To walk in his ways, to have a heart for the word of Yahweh. Matter of fact, when Yahweh appeared to Solomon and he says, ask what you want, I'll give it to you, people say, oh, he asked for wisdom. Okay, they translate it as wisdom, but you know literally what he asked for? Literally, the translation is a heart to Shema. That's it. A heart to hear. Give me a heart to hear you. Wow. Because see, Shema doesn't just mean hear, it means to hear with the intent of obedience. So when he says, ask anything you want, says, I want wisdom. No, he says, give me a heart to hear you and be obedient. That's the same thing David prayed for his son. And Yahweh translates that for us as wisdom. Yeah, that definitely was wise, right? Now we know Solomon was very wise, but he did walk away from things, not getting into that. But again, how do we have wisdom? Ask of Yahweh, and he will teach us. But we need to walk with him and be obedient to his voice in the midst of all that, right? Let's look at Psalm 119:33. Teach me, Adonai, the way of your laws. Keeping them will be its own reward for me. See that? My reward isn't what I get out of it. It's not if I do this, I get that. Like we started in the beginning, Ekev, because, right? I'm going to do this because you're going to give me something. No. He says, if I keep your word, that in itself is my own reward. That's all I need. Right? Now we know if you do this, you get that. But just doing what Yahweh says is pleasing to him is enough. All right, let's keep going. Verse 34. Give me understanding, then I will keep your Torah. I will observe it with all my heart. Guide me on the path of your mitzvot, for I take pleasure in it. Bend my heart towards your instruction and not towards selfish gain. 37. Turn my eyes away from worthless things. With your ways give me life. Fulfill your promise which you made to your servant, which you made to those who fear you. Avert the disgrace which I dread, for your rulings are good. See how I long for your precepts, and your righteousness give me life. That's it. Because you keep and you do these things I am telling you today, then we see there is blessing, there is life. And we're not just talking about salvation here, because this is where people commonly fall into some error. We're not doing something to try to earn salvation. When Yahweh gave his word to his people at Sinai, these were to a people he already redeemed. And this generation that's here, they're already his people. They're getting ready to walk in the promise. He's giving them instruction for blessing, not just instruction for covenant. He's giving them instruction for blessing. If you do these things, there is blessing ahead of it for you. And that's something we can learn to walk in. To learn to walk in his ways, to learn to walk in his blessing, to learn to elevate his heart and his desires is to be living life in his kingdom here and now. Because you do these things. All right. So anyway, that's it for this week, guys. I pray that this teaching blesses you. I pray it challenges you and encourages you. So until next time, be blessed and shalom.